This thing on? Hello. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Aaron. I am a buyer, seller, trader, collective integrator. It's my channel where we talk about all things of the hobby. And if you like the channel, if you like the content, don't forget to leave a like. It means a lot. It really helps the channel more than you know. If there's one thing that you could ever do consistently, comment and like. That's it. Say anything, leave a like. It does help the channel. I'm just so surprised that these days that YouTube creators still have to ask for that. Like, why don't they just auto like videos after like 10 seconds? Clearly the person wants to watch. Anyway, um, ridiculous. Today's video, we're gonna talk about you're not missing out in the way that you think. So a little bit of a open dialogue. Open dialogue. Not really an open dialogue. I'm talking to myself. A little bit of a ranty video about a topic that I think you know, doesn't get talked about enough. And we're gonna talk about specifically the $4 million PSA 9 Illustrator Pikachu. Hooray, wow. That sold, air quotes. We're going to talk about learning, good old learning, like back in the day with the Reading Rainbow. We're going to talk about identifying trends, and we're going to talk about market watch content. So, first and foremost, let's talk about the Illustrator Pikachu. If you didn't know, on eBay, a longtime seller and a collector, SM Pratt, he had a PSA 9 Illustrator Pikachu up for sale for a few years now, and someone decided to buy it. It is still unclear as of right now, as of today, if that was paid for. He has a post on his Pokemon forum called Elite Forum that's updating people if the buyer is actually paid. And as such, as you can imagine, because eBay does not scrub any of their data, and as soon as something sells, they show it as a completed sale. People started running with the narrative. News outlets started to write about it. Talking about how this card sold, Pokemon's booming, investing, blah 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 blah. And as you can imagine, like there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people who have heard the narrative because of this sale, and none of them obviously are questioning, how legitimate was this, and did this sale actually go through? And this really speaks to the time that we're in. Actually, not the time that we're in, the time that we've always been in, where if you're on the outside looking in, it's really hard to tell what's legitimate and what's not. Did this recent sale actually go through? Was this offer on this item a shill bid? Was this item paid for? These are all things that you can't get the answers to because eBay and TC Player, for example, when you see last sold, they don't tell you if it was a legitimate sale or not. And even more so when it wasn't a legitimate sale, right? They don't remove those sales points. And so the market and people in the market are always led to believe that the things that they show as completed and sold are actually paid for. And as a result, it elevates market price. It creates, it gets sellers to demand a higher price on the goods that they have. And with modern stuff, this isn't really as much of an issue because there's just so much of it being sold. But as you can imagine, with something like vintage or items that are scarce or hard to find, um, this has a really, really drastic impact on the value of those cards and how people perceive the value of those cards. And this is the unfortunate part of the hobby where there's no truth police, there's no policing of this stuff. It just happens. And if you are a buyer, you really have to be plugged in the know and be very cautious on the things that you buy in order to make sure you're not buying something that has a inflated or fake price. And I think what is sad, most sad about all this is there are going to be people who don't know anything about the hobby or people who are new who read this type of headline, read this content, and hear about this news, and there's not a path to like correct the information. They're going to see this stuff and they're going to believe this stuff, and as a result, um, they're going to believe that you should be investing, you should be buying, you should be spending your money on these expensive cards because one day you're going to make tons of money. And that is just how that's the unfortunate thing about the hobby is it's always worked this way. It's not specific to the boom. It's happened when we were in the bear, when the market was not doing as well, when cards were cheap. Like people are always, geez, that guy, holy cow. This pedestrian didn't check left or right, started walking across the sidewalk, and his his bike that drove right next to me almost hit him because the guy didn't check. Um, wow, that was odd. Um, I want to segue this into why this video, why this topic, and why you're not missing out in the way that you think. When you're new, you tend to go after the flashy thing, the thing that people are talking about. Market price. You're more susceptible to the newest, the latest and greatest sets, the newest, latest and greatest cards, because you're a consumer of a lot of the hype that's being built up by fellow consumers. And the reason why I preach learning how to sell is you fundamentally start to understand. You understand at a fundamental level, I should say, rather, how like buying and selling actually works, and what's propping up market price, and how to buy below market price, and ways to navigate around market price. And so these are all like skills that you learn when you are active in the vending scene, when you go to trade shows, when you go to local stores, when you buy and sell and trade in person. There's not really things that you learn so much online, right? And you know, the reason why I think people are missing out, but not in the way you're not missing out in the way that you think, is because every time there is some type of article or YouTube video or hype cycle on this card or that card, or you missed this investment or you missed that thing, you're missing out because you didn't learn the fundamental skills on how to identify these opportunities. That's why you're missing out. And so let's not use the illustrator as an example, but let's just talk about general market watch video. Oh my God, did you know Mew VMAX from Fusion Strike is now a $600 PSA 10 card, $700 PSA 10 card? It was a 250 to $300 card for like 8 months. And then prior to that, it was cheaper. So, it shouldn't be a surprise that given the current market, the popular Pokemon, it's a card that honestly, people would tell you they didn't like. Those are pretty good concoctions or part of a formula that will teach you, hey, I should probably pay attention because I can see that there is an audience that. Let me try to get over real quick and focus here. I can see that this card is potentially undervalued. And I think the biggest challenge about market watch videos and content from people who aren't actively buying a lot of that stuff is you're being served the report on something that's appreciated instead of being able to understand why did it appreciate. And instead of understanding the fundamental skill of top Pokemon exclusivity, rare prints, things with higher sales volume. Like there's ways to identify these days which cards are probably worth speculating on. And if you're buying in when the market has already realized that potential, let's take the Umbreon VMAX CSR from Brilliant Stars, right? In a PSA 10, that card is now pushing 200 and 250. That card in a PSA 10 was sub $100 for 2 years. You could have bought that card early, invested in it, if you will. You could have purchased it when nobody wanted it, and you'd be sitting pretty today. And I think there are, I've come across a handful of people who are squatting on that card specifically because it's not just because, it was a budget card that wasn't the Umbreon VMAX from Evolving Skies. It's because it checks a lot of boxes. Popular Pokemon, popular trainer, Karen, amazing set, Brilliant Stars, which has also seen the light of day and appreciated very fast. And so you start to pick up very quickly why certain cards are performing better than others. And obviously hindsight is always 2020. But the thing that you will find across most of the cards that are doing well in this boom is they have checked the same checklist of fundamentals. And that should not be a surprise. And I think that's where, if you watch a lot of market watch content, they will, you will see these things in hindsight. But the question is, how do you identify and see these things before they happen? And that's why I think you're not, that's why I think you're missing out more than you, oh my God, I can't even talk. That's why you're missing out, not in the way that you think. It's not because you didn't buy the Illustrator Pikachu at 4 million bucks or 2 million bucks to flip it at 4 million. It's not because you didn't buy, the Lost Origin Pikachu CSR VMAX when it was like 30 bucks and now it's pushing, 100 plus bucks or whatever it is in PS10. That's not why you missed out. It's because you're not spending the time understanding like what gives cards their prestige, their long-term value, their potential to grow. Like that's why you're missing out. That's why a lot of us miss out. Is you spend so much time on like the latest and greatest, the hype cycle, the news cycle, that it's the things that aren't talked about today that will be talked about tomorrow. That's that's the opportunity, right? That's how you get ahead. And I all this is cyclical because a lot of people knew that are coming in now. They're going to be focused so much on Phantasmal Flames and um, Pokemon Center ETBs. And let me try to get over. Well, thank you. And the last three sets, the new people will always be doing that. It's never going to change. But as you age through this, you get more experience. It's more so about like, all right, clearly the newest stuff is important, but is that really where the opportunity is, or is it that content and that market that's propping up the potential for newer cards and newer opportunities to really realize themselves? And I think that's where because you become a little bit of a hipster, right? You start to realize that like if everyone is making money in the same cards, then no one's really making a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like it's not the the pie is big, but not everyone can be benefiting today from, you know, should you buy the Charizard V from Brilliant Stars full art or alternate art rather at market price? It's like, no, you should have bought it when it was half the price or when people didn't think Brilliant Stars wasn't a good set. Buying it now only only helps those people who had the foresight to buy in early. And it puts you in a position where you have to wait just as long as not, if not longer, to see that card appreciate to the same dollar amount, or sorry, the same percentages as the people before you. And so, every time a headline comes out, I would just think critically, where am I missing out really? Or where can I get ahead? I I heard something, by the way, at the top of the year, and it makes so much sense now. A friend of mine, retrospects, he sells wholesale Japanese product. He was, he used to do a lot of lives with the old card shop, Josh, another one of my friends. And he would just say, like, guys, it's so obvious. Why why didn't people go out and buy all the megas last year when they announced Mega? Why didn't people go out and buy Rocket stuff when they announced Glory of Team Rocket? So like you start to piece together how the hop works, and you have to really hone in on can you make it that long to realize some of those opportunities? Because some of them really are as plain and clear as day. The Charizard set being announced, Phantasmal Flames, right? I hate to say this because it makes you sound like super arrogant, but I'm going to say it. Charizard is probably a good buy at any point in time forever because they're going to do something with Charizard forever. And so whether it was Phantasmal Flames or this next UPC, or it was Brilliant Stars and the previous UPC, or it was, Obsidian Flames? Is that what it's called? Yeah. I don't even know what the set name is. It's so bad. Um, they're always going to be doing something with Charizard. And you just go down the list like, what's the next runner up? What is not appreciated? Oh, it's Shining Fate's Charizard. You know, Rusty from TCA Gaming has been talking about how he's been buying that card forever. And it used to be a $200 PSA 10. Then it was 250. Now it's 300. Now it's pushing 350. That is, it's ridiculous considering how much pop there is, how many PSA 10s there are. But these things start to kind of like, they start to make more sense the longer you've been in the hobby. And you start to be able to identify, okay, it's probably due time for probably not Pikachu, he has Surging Sparks. Not Charizard, he has Phantasmal Flames. Not Gengar, he had his time with Phantasmal Flames as well. What else is coming up? Mewtwo? Dragonite's coming. There's a Mega Dragonite that was announced in the game. Like, you start to piece together what is popular in the hobby, what is being announced, what is being released, and that's how you speculate. And that's how you learn the core skill of identifying which cards are good, which cards have the potential for being great. And when I think about investing in the hobby, that is where I actually go to, is buying the Mewtwo V from Pokemon Go. Great card. It had no business being a $100 PSA 10, $130 PSA 10. And now look at it. It's pushing 350, 400. So when I see the news cycles, for me, it's my head always goes to, there's a lot of noise. All right. Here's the impact of that noise. Where do I want to play in this playing field? Do I want to buy in and be part of that hype, knowing that the unfortunate truth is there are big whales out there who are slinging cash, tens of thousands, some of them hundreds of thousands, on singles and slabs, and they're able to move the market. Do I want to be part of that crowd that kind of picks up the breadcrumbs? Or do I want to veer off left and find, things that people aren't talking about that I think will be a good opportunity? I'll say it. People are going to hate it. Eevee Pokemon Day promo in a PSA 10. If you're unaware, this is the promo from the 2-pack blister for Prismatic Evolutions. Currently, there's only a pop 2200 in a PSA 10, and it's not easy to grade. I think the total gem rate is like 30 or 40%. The card is like less than $10 a card. You got the Eevee, a popular Pokemon. You got Pokemon Day as a stamp, which of all the stamps that you could ask for, something iconic as Pokemon Day, it doesn't really mean that much to many of us today, but I can see how it's a broad appeal and it's a wonderful looking stamp. Why not, right? And it's tied to Prismatic Evolutions. And so, I'm speculating on it. I believe in it, but I just laid out a blueprint. Here's how you identify a card that is probably going to be worth buying if you can afford the money to speculate and invest, that will likely do well in the future. Spending, I have like 8 copies, so not many. Me spending that $500, $600 on those copies compared to, hyping news cycles talking about why I should buy Destined Rivals at 400, or I should buy Mega Evolution at 315 or whatever it is. Like, eventually you get to the point where it doesn't compute. Like, why would I want to spend my money and my time on something that everyone else is buying and thinking that the value is going to go up, when there are other opportunities and cards I can help build the collection, I can help build the vault, the business? Because at the end of the day, I think the challenge that a lot of people will have is understanding that $1 equals $1 and 1 unit of time equals 1 time. It means that even if you spend $1 on a booster box, it's the same dollar you could spend on a slab. And I think when you're new, that computation doesn't make sense. You want to chase the thing people are talking about because for some reason, for that dollar, you feel better on being relevant when release day comes out, or buying the same thing everyone else is buying, or you want to buy it because you saw someone make a video on it, so it feels like a good buy. But in reality, when I actually figure out how to get ahead, and I still struggle with this, by the way. I'm not saying I'm perfect. It's when I started to look at my time and my money investment. Doesn't matter what I buy, it doesn't matter what I spend my money on. It's all the same unit. The outcome is different based on what I decide to do, but my investment is the same unit of measure. It's not any more different or special because I decided to spend money on a Pokemon Center ETB versus singles or slabs. It's the outcome that's different. And I think like hype and news cycles get people to believe that if you're not relevant, if you're not present, and you're not spending money on what's being talked about today, you're going to miss out. And, ultimately, that's my message at the end of this video. That's not why you're missing out. That's not it at all. All right, 21-minute video. That's it. Oh, beautiful day today. Happy Wednesday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And remember, you're not missing out in the way that you think. Peace.